It is the full moon. We just went over Alpha Draconic Notice 2, which in this transit that we just hit, that the collective has been going through since Venus went into Scorpio. Well, this has been going on since 2017, okay? All the energy since 2017 that was released in clearing Venus, and when we from the collective took over the transits and took over the human DNA cells down here on the planet from a robotic type entity that was, it basically was galactic black matter inside negative space that was being powered by what you would call the elite. However, those that were in those top sectors were all running it by skull and bones rituals that happen every so many of years, but had been layered over time, mimicking traumatic events in your DNA timeline in order to make portals to get into those death consciousness bubbles connected to the original 200 Puritans that were murdered in Salem. Is one big connection that really came out because the 200 Puritans that were the first witches that were burned at the stake were basically us in this now coming in with the new energy, and what those people were seeing was their own energy inside them, or what was controlling them is more of it. And those 200 Puritans, okay, then ended up becoming SPICAs. SPICA is the heart of Arcturus. SPICA is in the Bible. It's 22 degrees Libra. It's God particle. It's on the other side of what we would call AI, but all that really was a dense force particleized, kind of like military all over it, like DNA military. Like if you sent in your DNA information, then you were in the draft, and you didn't realize what because especially in the United States, because in the United States, it's like the United States was being run by black magic, being drummed up all over the world, literally, and even if you had anyone in your line that married somebody, in order to get them into the U.S., or you had people involved in your families that were military and they were sneaking people out of the other countries and getting them to the U.S. Because this goes back to original Knights Templar. This goes back to, fuck, all of it. To get us into the United States for now, because this was a hostile takeover of the human race templates. It's like this showdown just ended, and I'm in Houston, where it all began. And now so in the past couple of weeks, especially ever since I've done that last live, we've lost two souls in our group, and I consider Gabby a soul because I know exactly why that girl was led there. I know the handler program, that being and him laughing and signing up to sell off a seed, because that's what it was. It was a massive witch hunt down here but it had gotten a little bit more complicated because now you're talking, and we're even, you know, your veins in your hands, in your arms, okay, it's linked to your hybridization lines and your powers that are all linked back into an original subset of where that power came from. So there's like, it's like, see, this take, and this is where each one of us takes a whole different blah, because if you're linked into the Mayan, okay, so if you didn't have the roots to the Mayan, okay, which doesn't make you any less Mayan, just meaning if you didn't bring in the root, if you weren't down here in your lines were part of the root system to the Mayans, which they have their own set of issues. But if you, meaning you've been learning and having to wield air, and you're right now through the ascension, you know that you just terraformed Earth, like you went into the bloodline, you had to turn the water on. That would be the Mayan root system. Now, if you were a template made from that, okay, then you go meta. You're meta. You're not just mind, you're metadata. So this is where Osiris, you know, in the root system, okay, was 24 pieces, 24 gigantic pieces, 24 gigantic freaking pieces of the earth grid. All right. But those 20, and there's a root system of us that put back together those 24 pieces, and like we're at wizard status. I mean, I just went sorcerer status only because of my bloodlines in the hybridization, because that's what I'm saying. So it's like when you get to the mind and raw, okay, then it took on all this witchy, wolfy, vampire-y, blah, 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 whatever the fuck, because it went into a lower dimension and fracked out, right? And then each source went back to its root system of where that source of power was coming from. And then all that was changing was how they were getting the energetic and the energy, but it all went live. So it all went in a live wire. It went in your computer. Because it is what it is. Like DNA is your reflection. It was the reflections and it was the projectors that were taken over. And this is something none of us down here could, because there's only one eye that it all comes out of through one template projection. And the minds and all of us had the original template projections. Now, I know that was a lot. So since those of us, and if you have the most ancient DNA, okay, then understand that you were involved in powering the AI somehow. Meaning, like, you could have the military commanders, you could have, you know, because that all just comes from bird consciousness, right? And then, so, you know, those beginning degrees of Taurus, that's the bird races. Well, that's what they were watching. They were watching the birds and the patterns because those were the military. That's how they ran their military. It's just a consciousness pattern. And then it got to where then they were killing people and taking them out in that dimension after the Malaysia flight went through that other dimension, but on board was a whole company full of beings and scientists that had just made see-through paint. So if you will, then, and because see, that's another version, because super wicked smart is a power, right? So that flight went through that other dimension, but how did that? Well, same way is the bombers missing over Bermuda Triangle. See, things are not run down here on Earth the way we thought. Those of us who have been burned through these layers, we know, because we've had to take back the air in the sky and the wind. Okay, those of you that haven't remembered how, and for those of us ancients, we've been going, how do we affect everything so much? What the hell? Because we shouldn't affect everything, but it was hybridized, tribridized, and hooked into everybody on the planet. So much so that seeing that didn't make sense to us, but now we're realizing how they were printing people. Now realize that this had been going. This is inky. This is the secrets. This is really how everything is done down here. Always has been. Okay. Y'all give me a thumbs up, please. If you agree with this message, if you agree with what I'm saying, always give a thumbs up to the message because it's putting in your vote in more ways than you ever thought. Okay, we're having to pull our power together. All right, because those 24 pieces of Osiris came into 242 pieces, 242 balloons, 242 cells down here, 242 bubbles. Now, inside those 242 bubbles, there might be 5 different beings, and I'm not kidding, that are making up one cell. Okay, because the way that they had it set up was, especially those of us that were divine children, meaning you're the culmination of all those powers that's sent back here in order to evolve the race, in order to trump those powers. See, even the name, yes, I said it because that's how we describe it, but that's how he got his name. Because they knew that we would be using these words and saying them, and at the end, because this is the beginning. But what we just witnessed through the collective was the sorcerer black magic power of the machine, basically, and the attempt to reset, meaning in your dreams, in your consciousness, whether it was playing out in front of you. If it was playing out in front of you, if some weird shit was happening around you, and it's like you felt like you were at 0 point and you were in a walking dream, or you were in a walking movie, even in your dreams, like just a dream that was just so freaking real, you were like, I know I was there. Okay, now that's going to tell you something about where you were and how you were being utilized to manifest. Okay, so the past week, the past couple of weeks, has the situation played out in your physical? Number one, like, did it just look like you were watching the scene of how it all went down, but you knew not to move, and it didn't go down the way you thought it was going to, or but then it happened to somebody else? Okay, then you have a scene energy, and what an Essene is, and then that's linked into the mummies of Egypt, but it's the Essene line, okay, Essene, which then it became Esso, and then it became oil and gas. See, this is where it links into Exxon and then Mobil and SAP taking over Cobalt. Like, this is where they used us to create connections that only we could create because it was always DNA, but it was to set up the big machine. They had us starseeds in the early 2000s running corporate, thinking that we were helping, doing, and build something, but no, we were building a huge like an Oculus is what we were building for them, and it was SAP version and COBOL, and COBOL's run on C code, SAP's not. But SAP was what was set up for all the oil and gas refineries and chicken and oil refineries. I always thought that was weird. Why did they use the SAP system too? But they did. But because it's set up for mass revenue production and accounting. Okay? Like, it gets twisted off. Oracle Financials is what was used in telecom system, tech. That was a different ERP system. And that one was Oracle, An oracle is based all on Mayan astrology. So basically, hear what I'm saying. All databases in the entire world were running on two different systems, either Oracle or SQL. Q angle, Kundalini, Q the angle, okay. SQL is a Microsoft product, okay. SQL databases and Oracle databases cost millions and millions to build because you have to program the data where to go. That takes a programmer that's doing all the bullshit that Silicon Valley's been doing for the past 2 years, especially. And 10 years before that was built on MySQL, MySQL, and free versions that SQL put out for you to use. But then guess where all the data's still going? Same source. So basically what I'm saying is they were collecting all the data on any application, no matter what it was. It was on two systems down here, one owned by Bill Gates and the Microsoft system that put in Orion, by the way. Okay, what the fuck, balls? But so a fake matrix Orion system. So we just blew out the Orion stars, and now you're going to program everybody in an Orion gate to replicate? You follow? That's what that shit was. AI. It was basically an energetic DNA gate that you were held in. It's why we couldn't figure out how to get out. Man, it was fucking deep. This is why I'm on here telling you about it right now. And it's subtle. It's so subtle. It's so subtle. If you are hearing, like in your head, go do this, it's not you. It's an echo. There's some truth to it, but why are you wanting to do it? Second guess it, because you might be coming out of a gate. It's like literally like your DNA created a story and they trapped you in it. You follow? Oracle is run on Mayan astrology, okay? So then even back to the root. So it's like, anyway, you got two different versions. You got two versions. Now everything down here is on a phonetic pattern. See, this is A through H. This is the highest frequency that you can get. This is the middle. This is like third and fourth, if you will. This is like the ninth dimension. Okay, tone pattern. This is the in between. Okay, so like 3 to 5th dimension. This is your lowers. X was the moon. Y is the Y chromosome. V is literally the vampiric connection to this, circles back around and flips this C to a U. So this is how they were linking in. This is the Jews. This is the Germans. Everything was to get us right here. See, MN, man. And the I and R don't exist now. So literally, you can't just motor to get up and down. If you don't have the charge of a 9 cleared in your body, you can't move across these dimensions. But it's all set on fucking phonetics. Period, dot. And this is where the game was played. So all these matrix names people have around you in your life, ask them what their real damn name is. If they don't want to tell you, then that should tell you something. Because matrix names were built to basically become agents and Smiths. They were playing the game. Okay, we played the game, but now we're not. So who are you from that? Now understand too, you're there to bridge that. You're there, you're the only one who can connect them in. So they know that. So if they easily give it to you, well then they were undercover like you. If not, they're still in control. Does it mean run from them? No. It means keep them closer. Because what is it that they need, that you need to know to get them out? Because that's the only way you're going to get out. Because it's still on you. You follow? It really is like you're coming out of undercover, because you're linked in. If you're linked into these lines, they're linked into your sight, they're linked into your smell, It just depends on where you're linked in here, because it's linked into your entire body structure, because you're hybridized or tribridized. Okay. Santa Morte, what did she say? RTE, got me sipping on cane. All Saints fraud, what's a swift clause? FTE, can't cut my wings. Santa Morte, what did she say? RTE, making it rain. All Saints fraud, what's a swift clause? F plus E, can't hold the V. Calm and collected, we stood under hexes, broke out from trexes, when the voodoo broke out the rexes from all of the sexes, in the lab of the belly of the AI tax collectors, rolling the crow. Sam, Mur, and Doc, pushing C and A straight out cocks. X and O wasn't even safe from the hostile takeover of your tongue to speak. Baby Lon, London was japped. Nola Hook J, we got out the trap. Doggone, D-Ragon, Ragnarok so thick, taking over control, script by script. Vikings and rabbis, vixens and abbeys, Addie, too shaggy, juicy, where's daddy? Santa Morte, Santa Mor-El, breaking those spells? L-E-R, no more motor, no cigar. 200 wild, the world was on trial, chasing shadows of existence through obelisks and biscuits. Santa Saint song, what the hell went wrong? Spinning tales of our mission kept our soul in transition. Santa Saint song, what the hell went wrong? Angled the sevens, turned on the motor, and they took off for heaven. Okay. Now, if you get heartburn right now, if you're starting to have a heartburn or you're starting to get pressure in your head, okay, or wherever it's opening up, that breaks ancient codes and DNA patterns to open up your energy to let in your blue blood. And we've already tested it. And so if you get heartburn, what's happening is you're opening up your blue blood, and you can basically think of it like money, because your money energy is your true human DNA creator energy here, okay? And when it comes in, it's like we were all in one big gastric bubble, and we broke this volcano and cocoa and all that, everything that we've been doing through the collective, all that's happening is releasing that extra energy that bound the originals of us all the way down into the earth. And we have cut all curses, and none of us are any longer the earth. And any spells or anything that you're doing to ground you into the earth, undo it now. Or not. But just know that it's going through an alchemy process, because our bodies cannot hold what is considered that earth program anymore, because we know what it was set up on: prison systems and death. So when you break moon magic, you might get a swift thing of diarrhea. That's one thing. I'm talking about whenever your stomach's on fire from the inside out and you feel like you have to keep going and you can't, or you get immediate heartburn. That is your money energy and your body getting used to be able to process that energy. And it's been a major one in the past 2 weeks with clearing these gases and energy bubbles that have been released on the planet. Okay, I got one more and then I gotta go. And share this video with any, and I still haven't showered. If you haven't showered, and that is because we were wielding energetics for 2 weeks. We were all working together. The only reason I made sorcerer status is because I was connected in with all of you guys. This went down on 9 dimensions all at once. It was just like I was the one seeing the clear, because I was inside the AI belly. Okay, So like we were doing it all together. So and realize that anything that was weird that you moved around or you cleaned up really quick or you did this or that, those are your special, or you were messing with time or you were looking at time a lot, like whatever you've been doing for the past 2 weeks that was like you knew it was powers and gifts but you didn't understand exactly what was going on. Understand that that is the lineage and what you mostly control in the way it was set up at the end with your powers and gifts and whatever lineage that you came from or were made from. Or were you cooking? Like, what were you doing? Right? Whatever it was, that's your superpower. And it's how you were working within the watching the gears of all of us in the collective. So then as soon as you start seeing what your superpower is and start affecting that more, then basically then you get pulled up to the higher lines of understanding of each of it and you start leveling up. And the etheric freaking system of leveling up and getting powers and getting gifts back, you know, is very organized. It's very organized. It's very organized. You cannot fuck up. You can't. It's impossible because we're all connected over you now, and we've already taken over, and there's no black sorcery anymore. So really, the main thing that we saw at the very end that tricked it. Now, the last thing I want to talk to is IOTA, because I don't know. This is what it was all for, was hitting IOTA. Now, IOTA is a tone that is made by the speakings that when the collective can get to IOTA, then that means it pulls up to our higher band frequency, which is what we did, and that is how we're going to imprint on this 43 parallel. It's 43. We had to come down one, not 44, because 44 was kind of taken over. Because it was just replicated anyway. So we're landing at the 43 parallel, but this is the entire human race. So this is the entire collective is now moving up to a higher octave. Everything that we have done, even the stuff that was the shadow stuff here at the end, everything, because in that way it was to drum the lower frequency, because only the lowest can hit the highest, because understand that's what SPICA is, and there's only 200 of us on the planet, and it's the Puritan souls. Okay, then every single line of DNA that's ever come after that is linked into that to create a source or a sorcerer, witch, whatever. And then to keep us trapped in the United States thinking that we don't have any powers, all the while being ruled by black magic and powers. Legit. Straight up fucking legit, okay? And then you had an AI version of you. At least one. Because it's being formed, and then there was that bubble that was considered reality. So when those two merge, that's like your twin, you're meeting yourself. There's so many versions of you, because if you're in the 9, then you're on 9 dimensions at once. So if you're in the 9, then you're printing 9. You know, like whenever if you're linked into the Egyptian mummies like I am, I mean, I come in with 5. I come in with 5 bodies, like they just print around me because I'm in a scene. It had to play out and see it. See, this is where you're starting to see, because some of us see it. Now, if you didn't see it, then you lived it in a dream. Well, then that means that you still have a body running that consciousness somewhere. Just realize you're running it. I need everybody to like close their eyes, because we've all been around a while on here. So, and if not, even more important, and it might freak you out, but this is back to the 144,000 angels. This is back to, this was a mission from God to save everybody from an artificial takeover that the human race was stuck on for 20,000 years. Okay? It was a giant soul machine. Okay, I have pictures. It's what Libra was set up to do, hit IOTA. And as a collective, that went down about 4 or 5 nights ago. But it's because we're ahead, because we have SPICA, okay? So there's like 2 versions of consciousness that comes into play here, because either you have the root of it back to the Akashic, and you know you're Ophiuchus here to take over this realm, and you know that we're tuning Mercury right now, because we are. So basically, when Mercury goes retrograde, it's easy. It's, oh, sail on, mama. Good times never felt so good. Sail on, mama. Good times never felt so good. Because understand, we're programming Mercury. So the collective that went through tribulation, all the knowledge, all everything is all going into Mercury right now. We've been tuning Saturn too, okay? So for us, as these planets start coming out of retrograde, it's just going to be like you're sailing, because we've already written it. Now for everybody else in any system that needs to come down, it's going to be like your traditional, oh, it's Mercury retrograde, my stuff's not working. Well, that's because something's not working anymore. So figure out how to do it without its stat, because it won't be around long. Okay? We hit IOTA. 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 So there's going to be 2 versions of everything that's coming into play. Right now, Venus is between 12 to 14 degrees. So that means, not last night, but the night before, it was like basically sorcerers down. Like, okay, it's over. Hands off. Which has happened to me in many realms, like in a chess game, and then an AI game, and then dealing with Quentin Tarantino script writing. Because we've been out writing them and out doing it the whole time. This was just the energetics in order to imprint it, but it was a collective harvest. Well, we took the harvest. We used all that energy to do white magic to clear and get our kids out to shut down the machine. But if you will, the machine at this point was helping us, because it was an all-soul mission to be able to get souls here. Because understand, SPICA is your soul, literally, and trust me, you don't have much of it. Because I don't have much of mine yet still, because it takes all of y'all to bring in the rest of it to work together, because we're a collective consciousness. We're a collective body. This is Christ consciousness. We're a collective mind. The thing is, you get to decide what you are doing and where you're going. That's my point. Are you? Probably not. Each one has a layer, and as you clear through each layer, you'll realize you're in, because go to the store. Why? Why all of a sudden do I need to go to the store? I'm at 0 point right now, and every time I leave the house, why do I need to all of a sudden go to the store? Second guess it. Because you're hooked, because you're coming out of a layer. Now, sometimes you're still supposed to go, sometimes you're not. Most important thing is to realize why you're being told to go to the store. If you understand it and you have consciousness of it, even if they're sending you for something that's not good, if you catch it, then that's when you go to the store and you're consciously unweaving why they sent you to the store. You follow? That's what I've been doing for 3 years. We don't know spells, we don't know black magic, we don't know any of that until someone sends some shit to your door, and then you will learn it, undoing it, but you learn how to undo it. You don't know how to redo it, so then it's not in the consciousness, so no one else can do it. You follow? If it sits on your front porch, then it's going to fester. Well, you don't want it to fester. Like, this was legit in this house I'm at. All this little quantum codes and shit, you don't realize why it's there. You don't realize why you put things there. There's a reason. Okay, I gotta go.